Welcome back, everyone. That was an awesome session from Ari. You're tuned into season 2 at Full Circle. And if you just joined us for the day, we're into track 4, Distribution with Soul. The track for everyone who has ever watched their brilliant content get approximately 7 to 10 impressions after all that hard work put into it. Distribution, it actually is hard. Good content dies really quietly unless you build a system that scales the voices that people really care about.
Yeah, and for most early stage and growth stage companies, I think the most powerful distribution or the distribution engine, it's not ads, it's not SEO, it's not big PR announcements. It's usually the founder. Founders have reach, founders have a lot of conviction in what they're building, and they have that I'm going to post at 1 a.m. because I believe in this product kind of energy, right? But founders also, unfortunately or fortunately, have calendars. They have a general knack of being inconsistent. They obviously face burnout. And that becomes a massive challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a huge one. It's a huge one. And quick one for the chat. I know people are still rolling back into this session from the previous one, but would just love to get like a little temperature check on what people's current founders' content strategy or energy is really like, and reacting with one emoji to reflect that. We got sunglasses, that your founder is posting like an absolute legend, like Adam is here. Um, they try, but they need a system, or shock horror, they've left me on red. That's probably where most people are going to be, I'm guessing. Oh, we've got one legend. Okay. Amazing. Two
Just
legends.
post about myself and how much of a legend I am on LinkedIn.
Very, very, very good. Okay. Well, look, today we've got Adam Holmgren. Adam is the CEO and co founder of Fibler. Adam took his own founder voice, he turned it into a brand, and then has turned that brand into a distribution system that compounds and doesn't fade with time. It's been a brilliant transition and one that I'm excited for him to explore. And so today he's going to walk us through how to turn founder energy into a repeatable brand and distribution engine, how to scale founder storytelling across channels, and how to balance founder personality with company brand identity. Adam, we are so excited to have you. Over to you.
Yeah, really good to be here. I mean, these are topics I'm incredibly passionate about, obviously, and things that I've already see here that the pink line is all over the feed, and I'm sorry for that, but it's the way I'm trying to grow, right? But in this journey, I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Fibler, and we do LinkedIn ads attribution mainly, and I've learned so much from growing that. We've been live for the past 15 months, I'd say. And I've learned so much in that journey that I really want to share with you today, on both on how to build a personal brand that really works as a distribution engine, but also how to turn that into a company brand that people love. I think that's equally important. But before we dive into that, I want to really do some background. And I mean, most of you know this already, right? How do people actually buy on in B2B? They don't necessarily see an ad, click an ad, right, and go and buy. So I took these stats from a company called Winter, that is a great survey company. And the key trend is obviously that buyers trust their peers more than anything and other people. 80% of B2B buyers prefer to buy from people they know and trust. And I think this is crucial, right? People over companies is the general theme that we see here. And 68% of buyers have reached out to a vendor because of a personal post they saw. And I mean, just a few years ago, I remember myself reaching out to a company called Metadata at the time because I was following their marketing executives so much and thought they were doing a great job. I barely knew what they did, right? But I reached out to them just because I was interested. So I think this is the kind of background into company, or like people over company. And then the second part of the background is obviously like SaaS is incredibly competitive. Like it's crazy. I found a number somewhere that we have about 200,000 SaaS companies today in the world, 2025, up from somewhere around 30,000 in 2024. And it's obviously the whole AI boom, it's easier than ever to create a software. It's easier than ever to spin up an MVP. But and obviously it becomes a lot of chaos. It's very hard to stand out in a market that has a lot of companies. So the strongest lever, obviously, that you can use, that is yourself. So your own expertise, your own network, the things that make you unique. Because most of the time today, like very few vendors, if they're not a lovable or something like that, have features that truly are a moat. Most companies have competitors that have the same features, and we need to find other things that are our moat in the market. And I think when you're starting a company, or wanting to grow a company, you have to focus on yourself, your network, your expertise. That's kind of how to start something like that. And if you're selling in SaaS to SaaS, organic LinkedIn is most likely the easiest way to go. We know that everyone is there, and it's a great first channel to start with. Uh, and to me, like, being founder led is not necessarily about just pushing content out from the founder. It is really about building trust, right? I really think that people buy into the kind of point of views and the views that the founder have before they even realize that they have a product. I think that's an extremely important thing to say. Like, yes, we push out content to in some way promote what we do, but we're also sharing value to build that trust. And I'm going to talk more about how we do that later on, of course. Um, so this was how I started. We launched Fibbler 15 months ago or so, but I started posting on LinkedIn 3 years before that point. I didn't have a product at that point. I didn't have anything to sell. I just started posting because I wanted to learn and because I wanted to share what I was kind of learning at the time. And then you can see here to the right one of my first LinkedIn posts. It was very popular at that point to do tip of the weeks. It's not necessarily the post I'm most proud of today, but at least it was a starting point. And I mean, I think that was really what made us, you know, grow so much from the beginning. I had a network of almost 30,000 people already that I've been talking to for years, right? I have that trust. I have never sold them anything. So when we launched Fibbler, I finally had something that could be interesting for them. It was way easier. Um, so if I'm not clear, you should definitely start posting on LinkedIn, regardless if you're a founder or if you're an exec, or if you have to force your own founder to start posting. That's kind of step number one. Um, and I mean, when we launched Fibbler, I already had that trust. People were already listening to me, and I just nudged them in our direction to try the product. And I think we got 50 paying customers or so in the first 4 months. That would never have happened without my network. And I see that as, we have these 200,000 SaaS companies today, but there's so many that never even get off the ground because it's so hard to grow something from scratch. So this is kind of, I would say, a hack to to get that first initial growth, to build network before you even build a product. That's definitely my biggest tip. But then it stopped scaling. Founder led is great. Like, my having my face behind something, behind a product, it's great for a while. But at some point, it will stop scaling, or at least stop growing as fast. That happened to us after about, I'd say, these first 50 customers. And then I started thinking about, okay, what should we do now? What is the next step? I thought this founder led thing, that's everything you read on LinkedIn, right? It should take us to the moon, but that's not the case. I think. And the first ceiling that we hit with my founder brand is obviously reach. I mean, yes, I have a network of almost 30,000 people, but we all know that the LinkedIn algorithm can be tricky. My network is pretty big in Europe, since I'm European based, right? If we want to grow in the US, it might be hard. So it's very hard to depend on a network if you're not a person like Adam Robinson that has 100,000 plus people, right? And the second ceiling that we kind of hit was we were so dependent on me. Like if I wasn't posting, if I wasn't putting out campaigns, then we would see. I'm showing off. Then we would see nothing coming into Fiddler, and that's obviously dangerous. I want to be the main driver of the company, but the company also need to be its own driver. Third ceiling is obviously brand ceilings. In the beginning, there were very few people who knew what Fibbler was. They knew about me and they knew that I had a product for LinkedIn ads, but they had no trust in the company and in the company brand because we haven't done anything with it. So that's also a realization. Like the brand is so important, also from a company point of view. Um, so what I realized early on there after our first 50 customers, being founder led is not enough. It can get you off the ground. It's probably the best way to build a SaaS company and get it off the ground. But once you grow, you also need other things that make people remember you. You need a brand that can live on its own. And I think we are, well on our way to at least do that. Um, and I'm gonna talk about today and show you my framework for how you can do both. And these are kind of our results from doing so. I mean, we're obviously a very small brand in a very competitive niche like the attribution category, and we now own around 6% or so of the share of search, which has been huge for us and been a big priority for us, of course, to kind of disrupt that market in a way. Um, and these are things I think we should prioritize over necessarily being just founder led. So I want to introduce you to my own founder brand framework. So we're stepping away from being just founder led, and we are focusing on both. So it's obviously we are going to keep the founder as the big distribution engine here because it's an insanely powerful thing, but pair that with a company brand building things that will also in comparison to that build the company brand. And I would say today when I look at people coming into Fibbler and so on, a lot of them have no idea who I am, which is great because they've heard of Fibbler and they have most likely seen this freaking lion all over their feed and might be annoyed by it, but at least they know it, and that's the goal. I don't want them to necessarily know me. But I think this is the ultimate way to both scale trust through the founder, but also have people remember you through the brand. And the first step of really doing so is obviously you have a founder, you have very clear content pillars. I think that's critical. These content pillars need to be aligned with your product. They should not sell your product. It's very, very important. It's not about pitching your product in every post. It's about talking about things that's related to your product most likely, and then sharing your point of view, giving value. And for me, as an example, I have a LinkedIn ads product. So obviously, I talk a lot about running LinkedIn ads. How can you do that effectively? That does not have anything to do with my product necessarily, but it's adjacent to it, which is important. I'm talking about how to build a company in public. I'm talking about building brand like this, and then of course ABM and attribution. Those are my four pillars. So if I post 5 times a week, which I am on weekdays, I want to have one of those every day. So LinkedIn ads on Monday, building in public on Tuesday, and so on. This is critical to set up a clear distribution handling and content pillars. And I mean, it is about giving value. I cannot stress that enough. If you start, pitching your product, people will start to unfollow you. That will never work. The second part is, and what I obviously talked about before, what I realized is I have a good audience in Europe. I'm European based. I have been, connecting with a lot of Europeans. And we started notice early on that we had very few customers in the US, right? So how should we then scale my message or my founder led message to outside of Europe? And one way to do that, or maybe the most effective way today, I think, are using what we call thought leader ads. And now it's obviously extremely focused on LinkedIn, but I think it's one of the most efficient channels when you're a new SaaS company. Thought leader ads are the most underutilized, the most powerful format that exists, but they require so much from you in terms of content. You need to create great content first, otherwise it will never work. So what we did and what I did early on is, like, I continued to post from my weekly pillars, and then we took my best organic posts and sponsored them to people outside of my network. And for us, that was mainly the US market, right? To kind of reach people I would never reach organically, um, which was huge. Obviously today we have above 50-60% of our customer base from the US, and I would attribute not 100% of that effort to thought leader ads, but a big portion of that is because of this format. I was already doing good content to marketeers, but this was a way to get it in front of more people that are not in my network. um, so if you haven't tried these are obviously super good, but there are also limitations that I found out eventually. They look and feel like me. They obviously have my headshot. The only thing that's added is a small promoted by Fibbler beneath them. That's it. There's no branded elements to this. There's no, you know, this was not, it didn't build brand at all. It just built my personal brand and maybe nudged about the product. So that was kind of the issue that we were looking at. So what we then did, and what I believe is the biggest hack out there today, is to combine thought leader ads with brand. And you've obviously seen this. It doesn't have to, I should say that it doesn't have to be a mascot. Not every company has a mascot, but you need to have some sort of distinctive brand asset for your company. And that can be colors, that can be how you write, that can be a mascot, that can be other objects. You need to have something that's easy to spot when you scroll in the feed, and that you will always, remember. Um, so what we then did was, instead of just doing thought leader ads from me promoting myself, we continued to do that, but we added these brand assets everywhere. So we added this pink lion on all of the posts almost, just to get it in front. So if someone was scrolling the LinkedIn feed, they would see this lion and they would immediately think, hopefully, he does have a name. His name is Fibs. Super, yeah, short for Fiddler, of course. But it made people, when they were scrolling through, immediately see the lion and then associate that with what we were talking about and with Fiddler. This was kind of the starting point for this framework, honestly. So we build trust through my authenticity, but we also build brand memory and have people remember our brand through these assets. um, so I think this is really the creative sweet spot I found, is that, you know it engages like an organic post. I mean, these thought leader ads, they are seeing, I'm seeing CTRs between 10 to 20%, compared to regular ads that are on average 0.04%. So it's of course crazy engaging when it is a personal post. Um, but then we can also make them memorable, as you can see here, by just adding distinctive brand assets, make people remember them. um, I just saw a question here, what tools I'm using to generate this. I do have a freelancing designer that generally help me design these, or they have at least helped me design this lion in 100 different poses or so. I probably have it in 500 different poses that I can add into pictures and so on. But some of the pictures I also have help designing, of course. But they're all AI made, of course. But I'm just too bad at AI at this stage to do it myself. So some things you're good at and some things you're not as good at. But this is really the center of this framework that I'm talking about. You have these organic posts, you make them memorable like a brand ad, and then you scale it through paid media. It's the hack in 2026 to stand out from the rest. Let me promise you. Um, but obviously, ads is not everything. You cannot scale a brand only through ads if you don't have unlimited funds, right? So I want to talk a bit about other levers that are equally important in this framework, I'd say. Ads and being founder led is definitely one part. Um, but we found, I would say, two other levers that have been critical to our growth, and that I think all companies should aspire to do. Because it's thought leader ads are great because they build trust and they create a lot of engagement, brand things that we added, they make us memorable. But I think that a real brand, grows when other people are talking about it. And that's of course easy to say, how do we get more people to talk about us? But there are ways you can make it easier, and I wanted to talk a little bit about how we've done that. So the first lever, obviously, that we're all looking for all the time is word of mouth, right? It's the biggest growth driver out there. It's why Lovable has grown so fast as they have. I mean, they have raving fans that are posting about them. And we're not a Lovable, but I wanted to, early on when we created the product, I wanted to make sure that we kind of designed everything for shareability. I mean, it should be super easy to share things. Since we're a data product, we have a lot of dashboards and so on, customer journeys. It should be super easy to share, and to for people to take what they have and put it on LinkedIn as an example. And what we've done in the product, as an example, we have these customer journeys. You can see one there from Client Boost. It's also our dashboards that we have a screenshot where you can tap that to screenshot, and then you can also select to blur sensitive information. In other words, you can post it directly on LinkedIn, and we have already blurred things that you might not want to show. So this obviously made it uh, much easier also for marketeers that used us to post about it, which obviously has been huge for us. Because it's impossible to force anyone to post about it. It has to come genuine. They obviously have to like the product, but you can make it easy for them to do so. The second part that I would say was more luck than anything is that we became part of this kind of point solution trend. People started posting their tech stacks of various point solutions, and we were obviously a bit more price friendly solution, so we started to get included in so many of these different things for use cases we didn't even know Fibbler was used for, right? So I would say this was primarily luck, but it's still finding these things where people can post about you authentically is so effective. And the second part that I think has been, I mean, one of our other levers that have been really successful is how do we do branded content that's also engaging. Because we started working a lot with we created this pink lion in the beginning, right? But how and we started testing out different content pieces and different visualizations of that into ads as an example and into other things, but it never really engaged that well. We couldn't really find situations to engage with marketeers really. um, so I started dabbling a little bit with memes. That is obviously, I knew that was an engaging format from before. I've been running that for a long time. But the issue with memes is, again, that they don't promote the brand. They're just funny or engaging, but they don't give anything for your brand. So that's when we kind of started thinking about, okay, how can we take popular memes in the world and make them Fibbler branded? So hence the meme branded content, right? And we have done so many variants of this. This is an example you can see here, where we take a popular existing meme, we put our pink lion into the center of it, right? But we also create it into a situation like everyone can recognize. Here you have a executive team hunting you down for ROI, like which all of us have probably have happened at some point, and it's center of our product as well. um, so this is also something we've been doing this, I would say, for a lot of different content pieces organically as well, ads, everything where we can find a purpose of it. So these are also obviously very professionally AI made, I should say, but it's still a lot of fun. So finding a way to take branded content and make it should still be fun, but also make it memorable. That has been the key here. Um, so before we jump into more questions here, I wanted to show the full kind of framework that I've run through here to kind of give you a more full picture. This is obviously, I started out Fibbler being just founder led. I didn't care about building the company brand because I uh, had too much of an ego, I guess, into my own personal brand. But then I realized after a lot of feedback from other people, like how important it is to build a brand or a company brand in conjunction. So to the left there, we have, founder led is still incredibly strong. It's a great distribution and trust engine. I recommend setting up these clear weekly pillars. You have, 3, 4 clear pillars that you want to post about every week, and then you rotate. It's important that you have some sort of consistency in how to post. You don't have to post every day, but maybe it's once a week, and then you at least are consistent in that. You need to have a strong founder point of view. There are reasons why people like Adam Robinson are big on LinkedIn, because they have extremely strong point of views, and that is needed if you want to stand out. Obviously, personal stories, storytelling in different kinds, insights that you have kind of uniquely are stronger than other posts. But I honestly believe that just being authentic is very, you know, being open when you know things, but also being open when you don't know things, I think are the most beautiful thing about LinkedIn. Um, and then the second part I talked about is about being brand led, right? So how do we then take this trust engine, but add some sort of memorability to it? And I recommend, you have to have some sort of distinctive brand asset. It could be a mascot as we have, could also be your logo, your colors, but something that people can easily recognize. And ideally also something that creates some sort of emotion. And these are obviously things that you should have in everything. I think you can never brand something too much. You should have it in everything. People need to know the sender of something. Um, and then the third one, obviously, is scaling this through paid media. I think is still very strong. I started doing this very early on in the Fibbler journey, before we even had a lot of customers, right? It was, we can always start with something. It's always good to reach more buyers. And for me, that is really taking the best organic content pieces, adding these branded assets on top, and then getting them out. That is really the distribution and the reach engine here that we're working with. And then obviously the last pillar of this, and maybe one of the most important, but also one of the trickiest, right, is organic kind of momentum. So how do you get uh, into a legitimate company? And that is by people talking about you and not you talking about yourself. So getting some sort of word of mouth driven um, thing from your users of the product, ideally, maybe a community driven content where you work together with your users. Obviously, social proof of different kinds, real use cases, customer led stories, all of these things where people talk about your company in a genuine way, I think are so powerful. And maybe not the classical case study, but instead, very authentic and raw posts about your product is very key. So this is the kind of founder brand framework we've been growing Fibbler with so far. This is what we will continue to grow Fibbler with in the next coming years as well. And I honestly think this is how you also create a moat in the market. You utilize your founder brand, you're utilizing building a strong company brand, and then you're distributing it all over the place. So I get so happy when people say that this pink lion is all over their feed, because then I feel like we are doing something right, even if it is a bit annoying at times. I still think it's better to be a bit annoying than to be invisible. It's not, that's good. yeah, that's it actually from me. That is all my learnings baked into 35 minutes. Um, feel free to throw any questions in the chat here, if you have.
Fantastic. That was really, really cool, Adam. I love that framework, the trust engine, the memory engine, the reach engine, the legitimacy engine. And I think the way that you sort of discovered these things for yourself, um, there's some really interesting lessons there. Like I haven't thought about how to build that bridge between that founder brand and connecting it to the brand. And the way you've done that is really, really clever. I'd love to ask with Fibs, what's your take on why people love Fibs so much or why people are talking about Fibs?
No, it's a good question, right? I mean, I think in some regard, these distinctive brand assets need to stand out. I mean, pink is a color that's obviously creating some sort of warmth. It stands out in a white feed. It's very in there. But then it's obviously also a cute lion, right? So you can't go wrong with that. And I mean, the story behind this lion, it's also a total, I would say, coincidence. I mean, we've always had this kind of pink lion logo. And then we had a kind of a design agency that helped us with our website. And then by chance, they made this 3D pink lion that I just fell in love with at the time, obviously, because I thought it would be cool. And now we have it in, I mean, 1,000 poses maybe that we can use in different ways. And I've never had a mascot at a company before, so but I really see the how powerful it is now, because I would say more people know the mascot than they know Fiddler almost, which is maybe another problem I need to find a solution for. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you don't have a mascot, is it a lot more challenging to build that bridge from a founder led brand to doing that meme branded content as you've been able to do, and even, founder brand content too? It just seems like having the mascot makes it a much easier bridge because it's quite distinctive and it's quite memorable. I would love your take on that.
Yeah, I think it is much harder in general. I mean, you could use something like colors or sound as well, right? But it's very hard to be completely different when it comes to colors, right? There will most likely be another brand that looks just like you, so it's very hard to stand out in that way. So I think we need to find something different. Maybe it doesn't have to be a mascot; it could be some sort of object as well. But I think we need to rally around something. And sometimes it's also typography, right? They're sketching things in various ways could also work. I mean, I think there's ways to do it, but I do think a mascot makes things easier when you can rally your brand around something that people get attached to in a way.
And when at the point where your own personal brand, the growth there started to stall at around 50 or so customers, and you were thinking about what do I need to do next? I'm curious, were you ever tempted to go more of the Adam Robinson route, which I feel is, he has much more controversial takes for the sake of, getting
Yeah.
attention, I think. And I'm not making a judgment whether that's right or wrong, but I'm curious as to if that ever crossed your mind.
I mean, yes, maybe a little bit, but I've also realized that I'm from Sweden. We are extremely um we don't want to get people upset in general. We want to be kind of mediocre and average. So I would go around and carry too much anxiety if I ever did the post that he does. So I realized early on that I'm not aggressive enough to only be reliant on my brand. I think there's other ways to do it as well. But what it does, like having an aggressive point of view, that will make distribution easier, right? It will have people that agrees with it, but also disagrees, right? So it's both good and bad, I guess.
Yeah, and if it's just controversy for its own sake, and if it's not tied to your own unique point of view, which is then tied to, I suppose, the brand purpose, then maybe you're not harnessing all of the good energy from that and translating it into your brand too. I feel like what you're doing with Fibs feels a lot more scalable, and it feels like you're going to be remembered, um, and you're not going to annoy or upset a lot of people
No,
because of a
exactly.
controversial point of view that you tried to have at a point in time just to get a bit of extra reach as well, perhaps.
No, I think that's true. And I mean, I still think that it also, you have to be kind of authentic to who you are. I mean, it's very hard to be another character on LinkedIn, as an example. Um, see, I see here Vector's mascot. Yes, Vector's mascot and the pink lion here, they are best friends actually. So they are very interconnected, I would say. And the lion, I see a question here. What made me choose a lion? Also very random. Early on, when you're starting a company, you obviously want to find a name for the company. You want to, oh, okay, what should it then look like? And the only thing I knew at the time was that I wanted to find a name that didn't exist. It shouldn't be anything else, because that's, it's easier to own that in that sense. That is how Fibbler came about. And then I realized that there are actually some sort of character in the world that is named Fibbler, that is sort of a liar, or whatever it is. So that comes up sometimes. But that was the start. And then, like, in terms of, I knew I wanted some sort of animal, but because I thought the examples I had, a company called Comsor as an example, they have dinosaurs obviously, and I think it's a great way to stand out. Lion was purely random, and a friend that is my designer friend that did it for me basically. Yeah.
It's yeah, it's very, very memorable. It kind of makes me think of Purple Cow. I think that's Seth Godin's Purple Cow, right? And this is Pink Lion. So
Yeah.
it's almost like a more fun version of that just keeps appearing on my feed, and I see it everywhere. And I think it's really captured the imagination of a lot of marketers, and you can see it going in so many different directions. And yeah, Adam, I said it before when we were doing our tech check. I think Fibs has to have its own children's book coming out pretty
Yeah,
soon.
exactly. No, but it's good, right? We have been taking these plushies also, right, and having them to events, because I mean, a lot of people going to events, they are parents and they want to bring something home to their kids. So that has also proven to be a good way to think about it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have some kind of uh, rules or Bible for Fibs around Fibs's character, what Fibs does do, what Fibs doesn't do to make sure that the brand stays consistent? Or is
I
that
wish I
in the
do.
works?
I've been running this brand on the side for the last 15 months and had a full-time job and two kids. So no, there exists no documentation of what Fib should be. It just lives in my brain, I guess. But there should be. That's actually great feedback. I should create something like that.
It's only because I've been sitting in on all these other sessions from this virtual conference that it came to mind, Adam.
I'm my strength in as a marketeer has never been structure, right? It has been going fast, doing the next thing. So I probably need to hire more people that like structure. Uh,
And look, this is something you said. This is the first time that you've been able to work with the mascot, right, for a brand or a company.
yeah.
In terms of justifying founder brand content or even like branded meme content, is there any advice for the marketers listening as to how they can maybe get some buy-in if maybe leadership are thinking, oh, this is a bit silly or I don't want to do this? Do you have any advice around that on how they should try and get a bit of buy-in and get started there?
Yeah, but I think like convincing a CEO or a founder or so that they should start posting on LinkedIn as an example can be very difficult. So typically, what I've done at almost all companies is to write for them in the beginning, to also and then to kind of post things and obviously with their intel and with their knowledge, but writing it for them, and then to like quite quickly show them like, oh, people are commenting here, like they get very intrigued and aha, people are interested in this. So like I think showing people how impactful it can be, by just sharing your thoughts, I think is one part that is very important. Then the meme branded things are harder, because that's typically is going to feel for a more seasoned company very unserious and very, they don't want to be adjacent to that. So I think the way to deal with that is most likely to talk with your buyers, right? And to have them understand that the buyers are, they do enjoy content like this. They have humor. They are not gray on LinkedIn. Even though LinkedIn might be a professional platform, we are still human, right? It's, yeah. But it is difficult, I should say. I mean, I've had a lot of ideas shut down over the years, but we continue to the next. We try again.
And do you have anyone shutting down your ideas now, Adam? Is there an internal monologue trying to stop things from getting out, or is it all just flowing freely?
I mean, I think my co-founder and my CTO, he's obviously not a marketeer. He's starting to understand marketeers a little bit now, but he is obviously, he don't understand what's going on almost at this point. I'm no, it's free flowing. I just throw out things and then we'll see what sticks. Which is also incredibly, you learn so much from doing things like that. I think like you have an idea, you're able to get it out the next day. Maybe it flopped, but then you learn something from it, or maybe it works and then you learn something from that. So I think it's incredibly powerful when marketing teams at any size companies are able to be very self-serving in a way and don't have to ask permission to do things. I think it's very, very critical.
But I suppose your experiments that you're running, they're still fitting within that four step framework that you shared as well, around the
Yeah.
trust engine, memory engine, reach engine, legitimacy engine. So it's an experiment, but it fits under one of those, right? You're not just totally going off on a completely random tangent.
No, 100%. And I mean, I think that's also a good tip, right? I think way too many companies, especially startups, are, trying to do too many things at once. I'm trying to do maybe one and two channels at most, because that's what I think a startup can handle. And it's easier to become known in one channel than to be across all of these channels. I think that's a big mistake typically, that people are trying to be everywhere because our buyers are everywhere. But it doesn't make sense really if you're not a big company.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Adam, thank you so much. That was such a terrific presentation. Some really interesting ways of thinking about how to bridge that gap from just that founder-led brand to all the way to being a brand that people recognize, trust, and want to buy from when they have that real need. So thank you so much for sharing. I really, really
Thank you.
appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank
Fa-
you.
Fantastic. All right, everyone. Well, coming up next, we're going to get into how to make influencer marketing actually work without big budgets and without it feeling performative. Don't go anywhere. Stay right here. We'll be back in just a minute with Akshaya Chandramouli. Don't close out. We're going to go there right now.